Music. Hey. Good to see you. Good to see you. It is 8:05. I know we're a little late. Don't worry. You know how we do. I'm not late. I'm just slow. But in the end, I'm so glad to be here with all of you. And I thought with me a special friend. Of course, not even just a friend, but really family. God, what has it been, about 8 years? Yeah. Oh my gosh. 8+ years. Yeah. Kate Lowry is in the house. Going to be talking to us today. So, let's get the moving. Y'all know what it is. Tell somebody, share with somebody, like somebody, and say, hey, sexy stuff. And you are way more than enough. And be great. And do what you love. That's the only way to be, right? That's how we live. Yeah, fake it till you make it. Whatever it is, go ahead, get that little silk. You know, it's really polyester. Put that silk robe on. Even if you don't go get that wine, it might not be a real heavy shovel ball, but it might be something that you can grab that you can have little juice in there. You know, it's okay. Make it look sexy. Yeah. So good to see all of you. Good to see all of you. Hey, Carolyn. Hey. And we're going to continue with our topic of falling in love with the learning of each other. We're talking about exceptional learners, individuals, children, families. Look, what better expert than family and parents and grandparents and whoever experienced an exceptional learner in their home, in the school system. Hey, you never know. I'm just so grateful to have this moment. It's been a long time. It's really been it's been forever. Oh my god. Yes, I am busy. I'm absolutely busy. Absolutely busy. So I think we've got everybody here. If you haven't yet, click like and share, like and share, like and share as we celebrate this month. Big shout outs this month to a lot of people doing a lot of work. There's a lot of things happening in the world. And we could talk about all those things. But this month, like I said, we're going to focus on exceptional learners, falling in love with the learning of each other. And I just want to thank you so much for squeezing me into your time, because I know, you have your little ones, and I want to focus on them for a bit. And we're just going to keep it casual and everything. And I'll try to read what the audience is giving us and the energy that they're giving us and everything. Yeah, we are in New York, as some of you probably did not know. Yes, I'm actually sitting on a sofa with somebody. It's been a while since I've sat on a sofa with somebody. I feel like we've had COVID regulations. I think we're 6 feet, I guess, somewhat to some degree, close enough.
I've been vaccinated.
But right, we're vaccinated. We're doing the work, and especially living in New York, I think everybody's walking around with their masks.
Yes, still.
And
yes.
Stuff. How is actually that's probably a good place to start. How has that experience been, having exceptional learners in your home? And they're how old now?
Well, I have David, that's 13.
Okay.
And Corey, which is a girl, she's 11.
Okay. So David and Corey have been experiencing this pandemic in a very unique way then. How have they taken being and going through, like, wearing masks, and especially in a major city like this?
Yeah, well, it's pretty challenging for them, because Corey and David are both autistic.
Mm-hmm.
They're both on different parts of the spectrum.
Okay.
David is a higher functioning autistic child.
Okay.
And they're better with structure.
Mm-hmm.
They function better with structure.
Yeah.
And since the pandemic, their schedules have been flipped around. They've been home with the virtual learning.
Okay.
And so that's been really challenging for them, trying to sit and do Zoom sessions with our related service providers. It's been really difficult for the transition, but they've made it happen thus far.
Wow. Wow. So now I didn't think about that they're doing Zoom.
Yes.
And so the service loaner comes to the house?
No. They actually do Zoom with their related service providers, which is somewhat challenging because they're used to the in person thing. So when you're doing like ABA style, this is one of the techniques that they use in school to teach them, because they have to be taught a different way.
Yeah.
And so now they're actually back in school in person. And they have to keep their masks on all day. They will allow them, if it becomes too much, because sometimes they'll get fidgety, they'll get a little anxiety or a little agitated, and then they'll allow them to take their masks off. But then, once they're a little more calm, then they have to put their masks back on.
So these are my nibblings. David and Corey are my nibblings. That's like my nephews and nieces, for those who are not familiar with the term nibbling. But
and David loves his Uncle James.
Look, and they're a lot. They're almost getting, well, if they're taller than you, they're almost getting taller than me.
Yes.
So it doesn't take much. And I've been away for 4 years, just about. So I've just kind of watched them evolve little by little, and so for them to be in a pandemic, to have this experience, and now be virtual, then go back and sit now masked up. So how have, with all the resources, I find you to be probably one of the most resourceful parents I know. You are in the system, working, advocating. And last week we spoke to Yolanda, and she was another parent who does a lot of advocacy in DC.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was really interesting to have that conversation with her, and about her son. And you have 2 children in the system. And my question is for you is, how supportive has particularly New York City been regarding Corey and David and their needs for supporting their learning?
It's unfortunate to say that the resources are there, but the information on how to acquire the resources aren't there. So if you don't, I would urge anyone that has a situation where they would have a child with special needs, there to definitely get an educational advocate. Okay. I mean, they are available. There is an organization, which is a public organization, OPWDD, which is the ground floor to start everything.
OPWDD. Okay, everybody catch that. OPWDD.org. Can we do that? Okay, OPWDD.org. Just for those parents who is that specifically for New York?
Yes.
Okay, for New York.
For right now, I do believe.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that.
All right. No. But if you want to check it out, we got some resources. I brought Kay because she's a resource mom. She's going to give you resources all day, every day. So I expected that today.
and this organization, it's really good. Like I said, it's for children with special needs. So not just children with autism. And you just go and apply, and they will walk you through everything that you need and tell you what's available for your child depending on their circumstances. And again, you can get, I would still advise an educational advocate, because that advocate specifically handles children in school. So for instance, David wasn't diagnosed with autism for a while. Because he's higher functioning, he didn't display a lot of the criteria that he does now. Before, when he was young, because he was able to communicate and express himself to a certain degree, I just felt like the little things that he did was just him being a kid. Yeah. But they were actually his struggles. Wow. So it took me a while to differentiate what was, our kid going through milestones versus him struggling with certain things. So he got an IEP early in kindergarten. It started with that, and they labeled him as having difficulty learning
okay.
disabled. That's what they labeled him as. So I immediately jumped on that because with public school, because he was in public school at the time. With public school, once you're labeled educationally disabled, forget it. You're like lost in the sauce. You fall through the cracks. They'll put you, then they'll put you in one of those classes where you have behavioral problems because they don't know how to actually teach you.
Yes.
The way their brain processes things to understand. So once he got the IEP, I would go to the school meetings, and it was a little challenging for me at first because all these acronyms you had to learn, like throwing things at you, and I'm sitting here like, okay, I didn't know what I was doing because I didn't know how to deal with that because I've never had that challenge before. So immediately I just started doing my research. I asked a couple of questions. I went to actually YAI is another organization.
I love YAI. Yes.
And their resources are free. They have free classes. So I signed up for every class that what I feel that I would be able to benefit from, to apply those resources to the children. And they were very helpful. To this day, when they have to get evaluated, because you have your yearly evaluations, I take them there, and they're very thorough. The evaluations are a little lengthy, but they're necessary.
Yeah.
And this is the way that the children continue to receive the resources.
And YAI does those resources.
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting. I remember when I was trying to get. I was doing their after school program. They had an after school program for exceptional learners, and it was at a location. Gosh, it was located. I think there was a place if I remember correctly, it was in Brooklyn. But it was in what is that? Brooklyn Heights. It was a little small place, but I think it was their adult area. It wasn't for their children. It was for like their adults and things. And I was just making arts and crafts with them. And it was really enjoyable. I'm sitting with the fact that and I guess I'm reminded of my own experience, like I said, and sometimes this month was kind of inspired as well. Is I remember my own mother struggling to really comprehend that that I was an exceptional learner. Of course, I never went through various testings that, of course, your children are going through, or either Yolanda in particular, because we've been focusing on autism and the spectrum of it and how it works and things. I know for me, it's the ADHD, it's the dyslexia, it's those things for me. But those things were not caught at all. Right. My parents deeply believed in prayer and religion, and so it was like God.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, right. So there's nothing wrong with that, but it was this mode that, in many ways, too, I would have felt the cracks, and did in some ways. I can't say I didn't really learn to really deeply read. Little secret, didn't learn to deeply read beyond maybe a fifth grade level.
But you would never know.
Yeah, not these days. But but I've also realized that it's the exercising of learning that I have to do. I have to be an exerciser of learning. And so I was thinking about this question too, around how did you get to a place as a parent, if you were going to ensure that the learning was happening? How did you exercise yourself?
Well, that was also that was a process. Also, it was just again, like how your parents would. It was definitely prayer for me. I would ask God definitely for the endurance and the understanding of it, because it was challenging for me, especially not knowing about autism at all. And during my research, it used to be called Asperger's. And then they changed it because different criteria was almost the same, and then they just started lumping everything together because certain people would have the same criteria but then a little different, so they just put it all together and just called it autism. But it was just my prayers to have to just give me the patience to learn it, because I was like just thrown in it. And it was because
you don't get a manual for that one.
You don't. And like I said, of Corey and David are both on different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like I said, David is higher functioning, so he's able to communicate with me, whereas Corey, she wasn't. She didn't start talking until she was 5.
Wow.
So it was very challenging for her to try to express like just what her simple wants, like if she wanted a cookie or a particular type of cookie. If I couldn't understand exactly what she wanted by pointing, because I would have various snacks for them, and if I didn't choose the right one, she would have a meltdown. And her meltdown would consist of her falling on the floor, banging her head, crying. You know, so I had to learn. So we started out with pictures. So I would take pictures of different snacks and foods, and she would point to them. So that's how she communicated to me what she wanted when she was hungry.
Oh wow!
So it was you know, it was something. And the same thing, like if we would venture out, if she was going to an area that she wasn't familiar with, again, a meltdown. And so imagine I'm walking down Broadway, and if I'm going someplace that's not familiar to her, she will pull away from me and just have a complete meltdown in the street. She'll throw herself on concrete and start banging, and I would have to just let her have her moment. And when she would calm down, I would just give her a big squeeze, so like the tightness would kind of soothe her muscles, you know, and somewhat lessen her anxiety. And then we can proceed. And I would have, so from then, I would take pictures of those different stores we visited locally. And that way she would know where we're going. Where we're going. Leave the house.
Because she needs that structure. Yes, she still needs that structure. That's a beautiful thing, that she needs that much of a structure. How does it, because I don't know if my audience is familiar all the time with the term of higher functioning, and I don't know if you can probably articulate it versus someone in their various functionalities, but between like one being more verbal than the other, what would you say are kind of the differentiations between maybe some aspects of Corey and David, and just some things that, like David being a high functioning in contrast or comparison to Corey, and how you have to respond to them, if that's okay with you.
Oh no, that's fine. It's funny that you do say that, because there were differences. Like I said, David was diagnosed at a later age.
Okay.
Corey was diagnosed with autism when she was 4.
Okay.
You know, people would come to the house and they did their evaluations on her there. David, I was able to take to Columbia. They have a department where they do their evaluations there.
Columbia University?
Yeah.
Okay.
So David, how I saw the differences is, like I said, David can articulate, his feelings. He can communicate with you. His struggles, where his autism affects him, is socially. David, it's difficult for him to process, like, how to sometimes communicate with people. So sometimes, just for instance, David, the way his brain processes things is very literal.
Yeah.
So for instance, if I'm in a room and I'm just talking to myself, and then you think I'm talking to you, and then you'll say, "Hey, Kay, did you say something?" And I'll say, "No, I was just talking to myself."
Yeah.
If David we'd be in that same scenario, and I say, "David, is everything okay? I'm not talking to you." He'll say it like that versus saying, "I'm talking to myself."
Yeah.
So and literally, he's not talking to me. He's talking to himself, but he'll just say, "I'm not talking to you." And it comes off a little rude or sarcastic, but that's just the way his brain processes.
That's why we get along, because you're very direct. We're very direct. So, I am not talking to you.
But then that's similar. Well, and then in that instance, Corey can't communicate in that way.
Okay.
But then the similarities with them is when they're very sensory when it comes to like their environment or textures, and sometimes when they have like these little anxiety, personal anxieties, sometimes they have to flap their hands to relax themselves, because sometimes their brains are just speeding up. And then they'll flap their hands to calm themselves down, or just to go with the moment. They'll, randomly just make sounds. So that's where the similarities came in. So that's what made me get David tested, because I was like, they're different, but yet they're still similar in certain ways. So that's how, I came to that situation to have him tested to see why he did those things.
Yeah. Has there been a time, like, what is, because I'm sure every parent, when it comes down to their exceptional learner, that they really kind of get to a place where they're like, I just hope this one thing, or this thing happens, or something like just the moment of improvement, the moment of like the breakthrough of the day, or whatever it might look like. Have you, and I'm sure you've had plenty, is there one moment for both David and Corey that you've experienced that you're just like, you see the ultimate thing that says they will be okay in the world?
Well, what I like is, I've always taught them to be there for each other. It was a little challenging for Corey only because she wasn't very expressive and affectionate when it came to feelings. Corey likes to venture off by herself.
Yeah.
She doesn't like to be hugged.
That's my core.
It took her a while to be able to do that. So the fact that now she comes to me and she'll hug me, just randomly want to hug me, and she'll say, I love you, Nima, like that. And that just brought, the first time she said that, it just brought such a tear to my eye, because it just took her a while to learn affection.
Yeah.
And David, the same thing with him, because he would always think like everybody's against him. Yeah. And that's something, because again, he struggled with his social skills. So if he didn't fit in, he always felt nobody liked him. So he struggled with that. And, I would hug him sometimes, and he would just be in his mood as like, you don't really love me. And then it took him a while to like soften up, to allow me to hug him, to allow me in, to share, like when he was hurting inside, to share those feelings with me. So when I saw those breakthroughs between the two of them, then I felt, okay, they'll be able to express, God forbid, like when I'm not around, they'll be able to express to other people, other family members, how they're feeling, and share those things and not keep things bottled up. And then they'll be able to receive that love back, and the communication, will be open for them.
This is, this is very interesting to think about. Like, that's to get to a place where a child can say, I love you, as a mode of improvement. Yes. I love that. And then it's probably like, I probably feel like I don't even need to say no more after that, because that's such a good way to even begin to reach our conclusion to this talk about like using love as the focus of this show, because I've been believing like you have to fall in love with the learning of each other.
Yeah.
And to support particularly your children in having love, knowing love, identifying love, recognizing love. We haven't even begun to talk about the kind of violence that happens to some of these children who cannot communicate, who do not have the skills, right? Who don't immediately know. And not to downplay even the experience that we're talking about now, but even those, there are people in this world who actually cannot identify it, and they are very much so. They don't even identify as exceptional learners.
It's funny that you say that, because of what how my life is now with the children. When I see people outside, how we used to snicker, oh, this person's crazy, or this person, I look at them so differently now. Like they're probably struggling, inside, to just try to communicate and fit in, and just basic survive every day in the world, when they don't have that help. Because if you didn't grow up with a parent advocating for you, or the parent even trying to understand like what's going on with you, that child grows up to be an adult not knowing how to care for themselves, just wandering. And when I see people on the street, like nowadays, I look at them differently and think, what's their story?
What's their story? Yeah, I know. And I think it's so funny. I was writing today, and just saying like how it's important for us to, write our own love story, but it's important to us to not only write it, but to know it after we finish writing it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, and I thought about this as I was thinking about this, show tonight and even last week, that, it's important for us to identify how the support of others, how the encouragement of others, how the surrounding of others, and if we were to ever write a love story, would we recognize it as our own? Right?
Yeah. No, I see what you mean.
Right, and I think that's just something it's a light thing for right now, because I'm just pondering the thought, but I think about how in your case you've had to be a co-author.
Yes.
To helping them write their love story.
Yes.
Right? And help them understand what love is in the world and help them see and identify it, because at some point, and I don't know if you've seen this show on, I think it's on Netflix, called Love on the Spectrum.
Yes.
I love that.
I've seen it.
I love that show. It's filmed in my favorite place in the world, Australia. So I really, I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, like, how beautiful will it be? Because they're 13 now.
13 and 11. And, it's funny that you say that I helped them write their story, their love story. They also helped me add to my love story, because they showed me how to love on a different level.
Come on today. Yes. That right there. I'm not even going to try to preach over top of that. I need y'all to sit with that sometimes it is that moment of, yes, they help us write our own love story for ourselves. And I'm hoping that we can all learn how to write that a little bit more as we continue this journey. Thank you so much. Last week was really good. I was in tears. This week I'm talking about love now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling like all the stuff, and all the, like it's just, thank you, Lena, the love for my friendship, and Jay. I appreciate you. It's just a really beautiful thing. If you have not, like I said, click like and share this with somebody, so that they can, of course, get as much resource and support, especially my New York family, and things like that.
The resources are definitely out there, people. I mean, when you just Google, start off with OPWDD, because that's the basis for everything. And YAI, they will tell you what resources are good for your situation, your child, your family member.
Yeah.
And all it is just applying. And once you get that evaluation, the activities, the resources, the education will all come flooding in. And definitely when it comes to education, get that educational advocate, because now both of my children are in private school.
Come on today, private school.
And they are being taught to help them learn, because my goal is for them to be as independent as possible.
Oh, wow. They're in private school. We did not get to this part of the story. There's so much to uncover. I feel like I need to have a part 2. But yeah, okay. Wow. And they're in private school.
Yes. In Westchester County.
In Westchester County. Wow. That's beautiful. Okay. So they're not in the city or anything. No. Okay. That's brilliant. I won't even, that's a whole nother unpacking for a whole nother day of
But like
blessings.
I said, the resources are there.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Because public school will not tell you
that it is possible.
Yes, because when a public school cannot offer your child the proper education, the city must provide them with the proper education. So they are going to public school, and the city of New York is paying for it.
They go to private school, and the city pays for it, y'all. So I want you to hear that.
The resources are there.
Okay, look, we are not only just getting resources. We realize that we are the source, and so we're gonna make things happen. That's what we do on this show, right? So, Justice, let's kick this music, and I want y'all to have a wonderful, incredible night. It is beautiful. So glad to have you. I know. And may goodness and blessings follow you all the days of your life. Love yourself in the process. I will see you next week, Tuesday, as we get ready to conclude the rest of this month out. All right? Bye.